IHEN's November Coffee with the Leader with Jeff Byrum. A little intro about Jeff is that he is a MHA alumni from our IUPUI program, and he's a board certified fellow in the American College of Healthcare Executives. He is currently a visiting lecturer at IUPUI in the Master of Health Administration program, as well as a best representing physicians through a local agency. In addition, he is also the executive coach for the executive master students. And previously, he has been a healthcare executive of medical practices located throughout Boone County, Indiana, as well as surrounding counties with over 140 employed physicians. Jeff stated that he was blessed to help lead a wonderful team for 16 years, making Boone County, as well as surrounding counties, a true gem within the Indiana healthcare landscape. The team that he was fortunate to work with was deepest gratitude and appreciation, and he wishes them the best. Now, moving on to sharing some upcoming IHEN events. There is the IHEN Annual Awards Better Together Gala that will be taking place December 2nd from 5 p.m. to 10 p.m. And then our December Coffee with a Local Leader will be with Alex Chang, who is South Region's president of Ascension St. Vincent in Evansville. And that will be hosted on December 7th from 10 to 10:30 a.m. Now we are going to jump straight into questions for Jeff. So first of all, can you tell us about yourself and your involvement with IHEN, and also kind of share why IHEN is important for an early careerist?
Well, Ramon, thank you so much for hosting this today and the IHEN folks. And it's a privilege to do this. It's a privilege to have your guys' time today. And I see so many familiar names on this call, and some people that really helped shape my career in the behavioral health space and primary care, some great practice managers out there. So thank you guys, some of the great students in our program. So please ask questions as we go. Raman will monitor the chat box down there. So make sure you like and subscribe. And as we talk, I'm happy to answer any questions. When I do these, my biggest worry is not a fear. My biggest worry is kind of like a conversation I had with my middle schooler, Brooks Byrum. He's my 11-year-old. And middle school here in Zionsville starts at the 5th grade. So you've got 5th through 8th grade in the same building. And that's big. Go from elementary school to middle school. So, you know, me being the dad I am, and this is the worry that I have when I have these talks, is it goes like the conversation I had with Brooks. I had said, you know, Brooks, you know, I went through school, I went through all these grades, and here's what you need to do. Here's expert advice. I said, first of all, write your locker combination on your hand, because now you have a locker and you've got to remember that combination. Second of all, do a map of your classes so you know from period to period where to go, and put that in your book bag. And I can kind of see him kind of drifting off, looking kind of like, okay, whatever. And third of all, take that check for your lunch and run it down there really quick so you've got your money, your lunch money ready, and you get your lunch first. And he kind of looks at me, he says, okay, Boomer, I've already thought of this. I can't write my locker combo on my hand because I'm going to be nervous and that'll go away. I've already got that on a piece of paper in my pocket. He's like, Dad, you can't take your book bag to class anymore. You got to leave it in your locker. So leaving the map in my book bag would lock that in my locker. And third of all, Mom's already paid online for the lunches, and I'll be ready for my lunch. And even those that may not have their lunch, I can cover them. So I'm prepared. So when I have these talks, I worry that sometimes I'm talking about stuff that you guys have already experienced or learning in your career. And so it's just my advice, my experience, some of my failures. Ramon already told you about me. I had 16 wonderful years there at Witham, with an amazing team. I do consulting part-time now. I teach at the Fairbanks School of Health in the MHA program, also in our executive MHA program. For those that are interested in going back and get their MHA, we make it simple for you. Don't drag you into class, and you get access to some great professors. My time at Witham, you know, I came out of IU, just real briefly about me. I came out of IU and a degree in economics. I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I had a mentor, family friend that started urology in Indiana, and he suggested the IU MHA program. I went down and met with Mr. Dave Handel, the program director, and he had said, you know, I'll help you get an internship, get some experience. You have to work hard to get this degree. I applied. He asked me where I grew up. I'm born or I raised my whole life here in Boone County. My hospital, our hospital is Witham. And so he connected me with the CEO there at the time for an internship. Well, I got that internship. I also started my MHA classes, so it was a busy time. My CEO didn't have an intern before. They had me show up at HR. They didn't really want to do it. So the first year, I cleaned bathrooms at the hospital. I delivered food. I sang with a volunteer named Buzz up on the floor. I disposed of urine in the tox lab. I delivered paychecks. I sat in accounting and ran reports. My cubicle got moved every couple months because they didn't know what to do with me. But looking back, I learned a lot about the hospital and the people there and doing those odd jobs. The last year of the internship, I was paired with the CEO as an intern, started learning a lot that way, getting experience with projects, meeting some of the leadership team. After my 2 years, he offered me a job there. I didn't know what I was doing. I felt like I was thrown in the deep end. Some of the folks on this call were my mentors, practice managers, foundational to our success at Witham. I was lucky enough to work with them and then teach me the practice management job. As that happened, we grew aggressively. We started with 15 employed physicians. When I left, it was over 150. So we were in aggressive growth mode, taking pride in being an independent county hospital. Ran a few hospital service lines, a medical group, worked with a great group there. And so I did that up until my kind of career change here about 18 months ago, now into teaching and consulting, which I mentioned. So that's me. IHEN has been instrumental along the way. I joined as a student, early careerist, mid-careerist, whatever you call me now. And so it's been instrumental. So if you want to join IHEN, just say that in the chat box. We'll follow up with you. If you're a student, we'll take care of the membership. We want to get you involved because that will network, that'll help you get jobs, promotions, that'll keep you informed. And it's the Cadillac of professional clubs, in my opinion, here in town. So that's me. I didn't ramble on too much. You're on mute.
Sorry. Thank you for that. We have a question in the chat from Adam Hornman. He said, when you took your first leadership role, what were some things you did to overcome not previously having any direct reports? How did you set boundaries with the new demands of a leadership role?
Yeah, I made a lot of mistakes. I remember getting called down to Ray's office, the CEO, a lot of times. My weekly meeting was Friday afternoon with him. Probably a bad time to have a weekly meeting with the CEO. But I made a lot of mistakes. And the mistakes I made was I assumed my MHA equaled authority. I was wrong. I assumed that my education and what I could read up at home overrid the experience in the room. I had folks like Kathy Serves and Laura Owens and Sandy Anderson and Debbie that were years of practice management experience in coding and billing and management that I eventually learned to work with. And I never really saw the relationship as I'm your boss. I saw it as a team. And that helped me early in my career, but it also helped when Ray and some of the other mentors would pull me aside and accountability check me and say, you know, hey, what you said in that meeting, the way you act, or you're making a gut decision versus going and getting some information and doing your due diligence. So I learned through trial and error, honestly, being in a management leadership role in my early 20s or mid 20s. There was a lot, looking back, there was a lot of improvement I had to make. Good question, Adam.
Thank you for that. Moving on. So asking this question just kind of as your past student, can you explain how the career change and transition was like from working in a healthcare executive role to an academic teaching role?
Yeah, I would say, you know, I picked up nuggets over the years that I could now apply as a lecturer. And I picked that up because people helped teach me. People were patient with that, you know. So when in class, when we talk about people like, how do I relate with physicians? How do I build trust and respect with physicians? We talk about starting with the low-hanging fruit. what are the operational process quality issues that they don't have the time to handle that we in practice management do, removing the barriers so they can practice at the top of their license, not placing an administrative burden on them, communicating with them well in advance. So if we want to make a change or discontinue a service line or change benefits, going and getting their input, and so they're on the bus. Other things we talk about that, I learned through my years that I can apply in academics is, the difference between persuasion and influence. Do we want to have to always persuade people, or do we want to be influential? We talk about how to communicate decisions that we may not necessarily agree with from a leadership team, but communicate it broadly amongst our team so they feel like they are communicated with. And then we talk a lot about the strong culture that we had with them, and how that was by design, almost by a playbook. With them, a lot of times I kept a playbook of, over the years, I saw trial and error, what worked and what didn't. If we were having financial issues, how do we take a family approach to that, or family culture with them to work on that? We had the employees had a distrust of hospital systems, bigger systems. And so sometimes that was a positive or a negative. I had a lot of times in town, in staff meetings and state of the hospital addresses, when we go out and talk, a lot of times the question was, are you going to sell to a big system? There was this innate underlying distrust. And so how did we communicate that we're here for you guys, we're here to serve the county? So I had kind of playbook items when we were short staffed, recruiting, retaining physicians, the culture that we had created and maintained as a team, a leadership team there. I used that to kind of apply some teaching methods in the classroom. But yeah, good question.
Thank you for that. We have another question in the chat box from Tyler Semna. He said, if you had imposter syndrome when you first started in your first big leadership role, how did you overcome that feeling?
I don't know if I'd call it imposter syndrome. I don't know if I didn't know what I didn't know. I was pretty naive. And so I had strong mentors. Ray, the CEO, was my mentor, but also my boss. So that was a difficult situation where you go in there and you say, well, woe is me, I need this. And he's got a job to perform. But he hooked me up with great mentors like Ken Stella, and I had a physician leadership mentor. So I could work with them. And then I got to hark back to those experienced practice managers that were on our team, like, Kathy, Laura, Sandy, and Debbie, Lori Weber, that we could meet and I would try to hold my tongue and listen. And I wasn't always good at that, but listen and learn. And so I never felt like I shouldn't be there. I think that's a mistake a lot of us will make earlier in our career. Well, you need to be there. Someone's got to be there. Have confidence in yourself. Just like when my kids go out for Halloween or they go to an amusement park, they are insanely confident they are going to have an unbelievable time. So let's have that confidence, that almost like a child does going into something, and let's have that confidence in ourselves, but know how to regulate that as well.
Thank you. We have another question in the chat box from Ahmed Al-Harbi. He asked, based on your experience, what helped you set boundaries where you don't come across as aggressive with your decision making?
Oh boy. Yeah, I think, and there's a lot of folks that was on our management leadership team on this call. I don't think I was ever aggressive or pushy with decision making. I don't think. Because that's not me. Probably not even the way I parent either. It's one of those things where I remember telling someone in administration I work with, hey, if I agree with about 70% of what our team's doing with a medical group, strategic, operational front, I'm pretty happy. Whoa, they couldn't believe that. And that is a consensus, getting everybody on the bus and moving towards a common goal. With them, we had something called a shared purpose, and I believe they do, a shared purpose where we saw people as uniquely important to the system. And every single person at Witham had meaning and worth. And when you have shared purpose, just like a good sports team, a good marriage, sometimes a religion, that shared purpose at Witham, it's easier to overcome the tougher times. And I think it's also easier to retain folks. And it's easier to have that common goal of serving our community. And so that shared purpose just harps back on me. And when I was recruit the physicians there, we would look for a cultural fit, an organizational cultural fit, that you're going to come here and be part of our family and not turn over. So we kept physicians. We retained them very well with that shared purpose. Good question.
Thank you. Moving on. So tell us about a time that has shaped you professionally, either through your successes or even through your failures.
Yeah. I would say I probably learned more through my failures. Again, going back to the mistakes. You know, I try to breathe out the bitterness of what has maybe failed for me professionally, but the end product of a lot of good things at Witham and with the teams there. And so, you know, breathing that out and realizing that it isn't about me, it's about the end result. And quite honestly, the academic route has been such a blessing for me. But, you know, failures, you know, that I made was in responses when I would intentionally round with teams. Intentionally round was taught to me by our CEO, Ray. He says, Jeff, get your butt out of your seat, come with me, and we're going to round on the 7 patients we have. And yeah, there was days we had 5 or 7 patients. And he'd say, Jeff, come back at 9 o'clock at night and we're going to round through the rooms. And so he taught me how to intentionally round, acknowledge people, acknowledge sometimes the frontline people that we forget to acknowledge that are foundational. You know, that unit secretary may be the most important person up on that floor. The person in Laura's front office or Kat's front office, checking in, checking out patients, needs to be intentionally celebrated and rounded. And so I learned when I round, how do I respond? Is it sympathetically? Oh, sorry, you're busy. Oh, we'll talk about that later. Diminishing them. Or is it empathetically? Is it conveying that I care, connecting with them? And so that empathetic response when I intentionally round, I had to teach that. I had to learn that over the years. And so there was a failure that I tried to turn into success. You know, a lot of people say, well, we're going to lock horns with physicians. We're going to line up. It's going to be administration versus physicians. Ray, my mentor, had a boss that taught him. And he said he had 2 bulls locking horns in his office. And he said, one side's the doctors, one side's the administrators. Ray flipped the script on that. And so relating with physicians, having that common purpose. And we were able to do that through a smaller, tight-knit family with them. And then the last thing is that inspiration deficit. I firmly believe, and this is controversial, I think, I firmly believe us as healthcare leaders, our job is to reduce or minimize the inspiration deficit. Gone are the days in healthcare where you will say, you will work, I will give you a paycheck. You're in healthcare, so you're here to serve patients. This is the job I hired you for, so you will do it. And just assume they're going to show up inspired. Our job as leaders is to close the inspiration deficit. And that's different for some people. They don't need to come into work every day like this is the best day of my life, but how are you inspiring and engaging our teams? And that's just not set from a strategic ivory tower. That's getting down the front line and listening. So I tried, and hopefully the team I work with saw that. I tried to close that inspiration deficit and say, hey, what matters to you in this job and your teams? Because if you're a little more inspired and engaged, that's going to reflect better on what we're trying to accomplish. So that was just not caring and saying, I'm your boss, do your job, here's your paycheck. That's a failure mode. If you want to succeed, I think you want to meet people where it inspires them.
Thank you for that. So the next question I have is, what do you wish you would have known 5 to 10 years ago about your career, as well as just building your professional mission and your professional brand?
Yeah, I don't know if I have a professional brand, but I would I would say what I wish I would have known a few years ago, as as soon as 2 years ago. You know, I worked it with I was in leadership with them through the pandemic, through April of 22. So, you know, we saw that. That was a tough time for the folks. I remember staying up at night and just worrying about people that honestly struggled. It was a mental drain. And us as administrators, you know, it was tough watching that for our family, our shared purpose family. But I would say, which I would have known. For years, I treated my career like a really good Netflix binge. Have you guys ever had a show on Netflix that you just love binging? And what happens is you watch the show and a little scroller, next episode. And you only have to click a button. It's great. It's like, oh my gosh. And so my career is like a really great Netflix episode. I'm loving it. I'm engaged. It's got my attention. Um, it's really creatively inspiring me, and the show's just continuing. But what happens when that show ends? You've had that. You're sitting on the couch with your partner, your wife, and that last show ends, and you're like, oh, what's next? What do we do now? And so, you know, I think looking back, I got caught up in really what I love. I fell in love with the organization, and it's a wonderful organization still to this day. And so I think looking back is maybe expands horizons. Now I was networking, I was meeting people, but I was really locked in on the community hospital that I loved. There's only 24 independent hospitals left in the state of Indiana. Withland's one of them. And I think that's a badge of pride and honor, that independent spirit. You know, it's almost like that Braveheart scene when they all run into the battle. That independent spirit where they don't necessarily want to align with the big system, at least when I was there. And so that kept me engaged and kept those episodes streaming. I would say, you know, if I had to talk to young Jeff, enjoy the ride. Like what you guys are doing now, whether it's education, your first job, enjoy the ride. Like, you know, the first couple clicks before you go down the hill on a roller coaster, and you anticipate you're going to have a great career. You guys are going to. Ramon, for example, I know you're going to have a great career. The dual MHA, MPH, you've shown leadership in professional clubs. I had you as a student, you were a rock star there. You're going to have a great career. Someone on this call just needs to hire you, give you a good job. But it's a safe bet with her. Listen more as you guys listen to me talk for 30 minutes here, but I try to listen more. I didn't do enough of that. Like I have to okay, Jeff, shut up and listen intently. And then have less meetings. If you get an administrative role, have less meetings. Don't kill people by meeting. You guys get an administration, your phone buzzes and tells you which meeting it goes to next. And then by the end of the day, you're exhausted. So you mentioned my personal mission really briefly. I was feeling stuck in the weeds with in my first couple of years. And Ray kept saying, Jeff, get out of the weeds, get out of the weeds. Because I'm at the 50,000 foot level looking at this organization. I need you at the 30,000 foot, whatever he said. But you're stuck in the weeds. He's have some core tenets that you focus on for your job. And so a couple of years into my job, I wrote a professional mission. And I really had this, if anybody had this taped to my wall. I had a copy in my car. So when I came home drained at the end of the week, I sat in a bunch of meetings. What the heck did I do? I listened to a bunch of patient complaints. I sat in meetings. I said, no, 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 yes, yes, yes. I don't know, whatever. And so I had a personal mission. And this personal mission, if I ever felt like I was going to get foundationally pushed off this solid foundation, it wasn't going to be the culture for me. And so when I had the personal mission of improving access to care, building a world-class medical staff, our team, recruit and retain the best, no compromises. Don't assume quality and patient satisfaction, measure it and improve it. So I couldn't go into our COO or CNO's office and say, quality, quality, quality. And same thing with physicians, measure it and prove it. Focus on growth. That will help reduce the cost per unit of service. We were in growth mode with volume, seeing patients, bringing in more patients under a fee-for-service world, help cure a lot of woes. And so bringing in market share, expanding to Clinton and Montgomery County, helped us a volume. And the last thing was my personal mission was build programs, not just practices. And so I just didn't want one-off programs that were working in silos. We were looking for practices that could work together and stay in network. And then when we had a physician who had a good relationship with us in administration that shared purpose, they would come to us and say, hey, I don't have A, B, C, and D. I'm going to need to send them outside the system. And so work with me so we can keep patients local. I said, thank you for communicating with that, because physicians sometimes will just start referring if the communication breakdown is there. Good question.
Thank you. We have another question in the chat from John Stewart. Have you ever struggled to get all team members on the same page, and have you ever seen negative consequences from it?
Oh, yeah, it's, there's some folks that you can't get on the same page, and, you can sit down and talk with them and coach them, and you can't provide, sometimes you can't provide the inspirational glue to close the deficit. Sometimes the demands or requests aren't you're capable of making. And so, I've had those folks on the team, and there's going to be folks that serve certain roles on the team that do a certain job that's important, that don't want to be engaged in the bigger picture of moving the bus down the hill. And so, and quite honestly, what the joke administration was, we said, if, they're not a fit here at Witham, we'll gladly send them to one of the other hospital systems. And so again, we were looking for that fit with them. And some of our best practice managers did not come with a college degree. They came with experience, a heart, a kindness, and a curiosity, and willing to learn. And so those are the folks sometimes you want, versus the people that said, nah, I'm not on board.
Thank you. And this may be one of my last questions from me, but can you talk about the importance of networking, especially like the importance of it when you're not looking for a job or opportunity? Like, is it important to continue networking as you go, even if you have a stable job still?
Yeah, I think, Ramon, you made a good point. It's like networking while you have a job. Some of us think, oh, I'm happy, I'm good, I don't need to open my horizons, but it should be building your Rolodex, should be something continuously. And we talk about it in class too. And I was taught when I went into like network and stuff, I literally kind of wrote some of my talking points, my elevator speech on a little index card just like this, and I put it in my pocket. Now, I didn't go into the networking event and read it like, hi, I'm Jeff, I'm here to do this. But it would help me with my elevator speech, and like, okay, I'm in a room with IU health people. So let's talk about the new feeding the hungry, food insecure thing they're opening up at Methodist here. I'm in a room with Ascension folks. Let's talk about their women's and children's hospital. So I would know, I could try to speak intelligently and network. And then I would have a hook when I would network. I'd be like, oh, that's so interesting. Can I follow up with you? Could I come spend some time with you? Could I have a meeting with you? Not formally say, I need a mentor, will you be my mentor? But say, how can I follow up on this? And so I wish I would have done more of that. I was pretty good at it, but it's one of those things where you never know a few years down the line, holy cow, someone in this organization that I've met can maybe get my resume in front of a decision maker based on we had a connection. So I think it's a good point. And it'll circle back to IHEN. IHEN's the forum that you can do that. December 2nd, we're going to have a big old party, a great fun time. There's going to be a lot of movers and shakers in healthcare there. Grab a friend, bring a guest, come to the event, and see who you can meet. And then we offer educational networking things as well. But it's a good chance just to get out there and make yourself available and build your network.
Thank you for that. I think we might have time for one last question from the audience. Yeah. If anyone wants to ask anything.
If not, I can tell some more stories about my kids and really put people to sleep.
Time is up, but maybe you can save that for next time.
Okay.
Thank you so much for joining in today and sharing your experiences and giving some tips on networking and building your brand. Thank you so much for everyone for joining today. I hope everyone has a great day and a great rest of your week. Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Good to see everybody.